Hello, hello. Hello, hello, everyone. Of course, my phone starts ringing right when I kick us off. And welcome to our digital marketing webinar today. My name is Krista Nair. I'm the CEO of Bootcamp Digital, and I will be your host for this session today. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you specifically about how we can start using what we know about digital marketing to get better results based on what's actually working now. One of the things that I've seen again and again as I'm training and working with businesses around the world is that a lot of businesses are still using outdated strategies. And the problem with this isn't just that it can impact your current results. The problem with it is that it can actually be hurting you and working against you, because one of the things that we know is that while these digital marketing tools are getting smarter and smarter, that makes it more important for us to be even more strategic in what we're doing in order to get the results that we want from it. So I'm excited to talk to you about how to get results based on what's working now and talk about some of the common pitfalls and the things that we can do in order to overcome them. If you're joining us live, hello and welcome. We'll use the chat heavily for this session. So if you have a question or want to interject and share something, please do so through the chat. I always like to point out, I'm not the only person you can learn from here. So if you have something relevant that you want to share with the audience, definitely please feel free to do so. It's certainly welcomed and appreciated. As we kick off, maybe if you just want to go ahead and share in the chat where you're joining us from and what type of business you have, that will allow me to sort of customize what we're talking about to make sure that it's meeting your needs. So if you want to pop over to the chat and share where you're from and what you're working on right now, that'll help me to just sort of customize a little bit of what we talk about so that we can make sure that it's as customized as possible for the things that will work for you. So you can go ahead and share that in the chat. And I see already we have people from a variety of different places and different types of businesses, which is always great. We have a financial planner from Vancouver. I'm also Canadian. Hello. I see we have someone from Texas who's doing agency marketing. We have Parish Tourism from Louisiana. Allison, I'm sure I met you when I was out in Louisiana on the road show there. Karen, who is from Cincinnati, doing some nonprofit marketing. Kansas Marketing Agency. Jennifer, you're in Deerfield Beach, Florida. I'm actually your neighbor. I'm in Boca Raton, Florida. I'm actually in DC right now. This is a hotel in case you can't tell, but super exciting. Financial services, we have an electrical, construction, from Pennsylvania, and I see some others, Ohio Manufacturing, Hi Lori, Frankfort, Kentucky, retirement planning. So we have a ton of diversity in terms of the audience that's joining us today. And I appreciate you taking the time to share. But we have a really diverse audience, which is great. And what I want to focus on is sharing with you some of the pitfalls of digital marketing that could be holding you back, and what you should do instead in order to make sure that you're always up to date and always getting the results that you deserve from your digital marketing efforts. So let's dive in and get started, because I have a lot of exciting things to share with you in our time together today. So I want to start by talking a little bit about what's changed in digital marketing over the years. And as I was thinking about what to share for this, what really came to my mind was that we're kind of in a position where we're having a foundational change in marketing right now. And so understanding what that change is and what you need to do about it is important. On Facebook, I'm friends with someone who runs one of the biggest social media conferences in the US. And as the conference was approaching, he had posted online and said that a lot of the things that they had reliably done to get results from their marketing just weren't working anymore. So they had done all sorts of things forever and gotten results, and now suddenly those same things aren't working. And why is that? And it was an interesting time to think about it, because I personally believe there are a few things underpinning this. So if you're like, man, my marketing is less successful, or I'm struggling to break through and get results, there's good reasons for this, and you're not alone. So that's important to know as well. But here's foundationally what has changed. The first is that every single digital marketing channel is more competitive than it was in the past. There's just no two ways about this. Every single channel is more competitive. When I started teaching digital marketing, and this was a long time ago in 2007, you could just show up on Facebook and have a page and people would follow you. Now it's more competitive. Almost every business is on digital channels, and most of them are using them strategically. Where you see this a lot is when we look at the impact specifically on things like search ads. So as we look at search ads, you'll specifically probably notice that there is much more competition. And that's one of the key changes that we're seeing. Andrea, I can see your comment. You're not seeing anything on screen. You'll want to make me full view from your speaker view in your Zoom settings. I do have the slides showing up beside where my face. I have the slides showing up in my video projection. Hopefully the rest of you can see me and see my screen. I am using a new tool today to try and make this a little more interesting and exciting. So hopefully you can all see my video. If you can see it, let me know. Maybe just say, yes, I can see you. If you can't, okay, good. Okay, so I can see, people could see me in the graphic. We have someone from my team here, so I'm always like, I think Bethany would tell me if she couldn't see me. But yeah, I'm just using the speaker view, so you'll want to make me full screen so you can see the slides, because I have them right beside me. And this is like a new tool. I'm trying to get fancy here. So at the end, you can let me know if you think this is like upping our production value or not. But I thought it would be fun to try something new. And, you know, you saw our countdown timer at the beginning and stuff. So this is the stuff I geek out on. Okay, perfect. It looks like most of you can see me. If you can't, just make my screen bigger and you'll see the slides beside my face. So the first thing is it's more competitive, right? Which we already talked about. And what's important to keep in mind is that in traditional advertising, your competition is other advertisers, right? In digital channels, it's anything else on that channel, right? So when we think about your email competition, it's everyone sending me emails that you're competing against, right? It's not just how we think about sort of with traditional competition. So all these channels are more competitive, and the people there are doing a great job. Right? For example, if you think about on Instagram, when Instagram launched, everyone was figuring it out. Then we started to have Instagram influencers. And the thing about the Instagram influencers is that they started figuring out how to make great content, right? What's the formula? What gets the views? And they spend all night, every night thinking about this. So they're upping their game which is competing for the same attention you're competing for, even though you're a business and not an influencer. The second big difference is that every single one of these channels is much more complex than it's ever been before. So we're dealing with much more complexity than what we've had to deal with in the past. And the impact that this has for you as a business owner is that a lot of things that used to be fairly straightforward and simple have a lot more nuance to them that you do need to understand to do well in the platform. So even if you think of one channel like Instagram, we used to just focus on the image and the captions and how to sort of game the algorithm. But now we have Reels, we have Stories, you can go live. We have so many different parts within, and they each work differently. And they all have a lot of settings and features that you can use to be even more successful. So I think it's definitely safe to say that every single channel has become more complex. The good news of this, so that you may be thinking like, oh, it's just so hard. But the good news of complexity is that means there's more capability behind it, right? So complexity isn't a bad thing, but it does mean you need to be able to master something to get results in it. And that's what I would think a little bit about. And you'll see that theme coming up, is the idea of mastery here. And then the biggest one is algorithms and AI. Now, if you've been at any conferences lately, you probably know AI is like everywhere and then some. But I'm not talking about AI in the sense of, let's say, ChatGPT or something like that. What I'm talking about when I talk about AI here is the AI that's underpinning digital marketing. And this has been around since the beginning of algorithms. This has been around for over 10 years. Facebook's had pretty advanced AI in their ads for a long time now. So when we think about the AI and algorithms getting better, it is changing foundationally how a lot of our marketing work will look in the next 5 or 10 years, but also it's changing the way we get results, because what these algorithms know is whether or not people like your stuff. And that's really the key to growing your visibility and getting results. So let's dive in and start talking about the strategies that don't work anymore and what you can do to continue to be effective in this landscape. Now, my first one is SEO, and I probably should have had a little caveat in this because it's not like SEO in general. We've heard a lot of people saying SEO is dead, especially because of AI. 100%, this is not the case or the message. What we do want to think about, though, is that while SEO is not dead, it is dramatically shifting. And this, again, is not an AI shift. It's got nothing to do with generative AI. Well, maybe a little, right? Because AI is eating up some search results, and I'll talk about that. But here's where SEO has changed, is that the thing about people who work in SEO, and I know a lot of like the world's best SEO experts, so I say this with a lot of respect, but they tend to be very technical and they're great optimizers. So if Google comes out and says, well, we prefer longer content, around 500 characters works best, or 500 words, every post they make will just be 500 words, right? But the thing to keep in mind is that if Google gives guidance about, well, about 500 words work best, it's because they know that users find value around 500 words, right? As we think of any algorithm, whether it's a search, social, AI algorithm, they're all designed to provide value back to the audience, right? And that's what SEO is trying to do. It's trying to give you the best result when you do a search. So if we look at what most SEO practitioners do, is they try and apply a set of guidelines that they believe helps Google to think your content is good, right? That's the essence of SEO. The truth is, where we're at right now is search engines require less signals that you can create, and they require that you actually make useful content, right? Which maybe sounds like whatever, but the truth is that where we're seeing the big shift in SEO is that a lot of the sort of technical optimizations that we were focused on don't matter anymore. For example, if you're thinking about your website and tags, right? Just meta tags where you would add the keywords you want Google to think that you're about, they literally don't matter at all anymore. Most people have stopped adding them. If you look at your meta description even, people will still say it's a best practice to put your keywords in, but it actually doesn't matter. Write your description to get clicks, because the description is what shows up below your URL in search results. It's being written for clicks now, not search engines. And same with your title, right? What's appealing? that someone will click on. Because the truth is, if you're writing about a topic you ought to rank for, it should be evident, right? Google used to need to rely on keywords to understand how to connect a search to content, right? So if you searched, top protein dessert recipe, you would need the words protein, dessert, and recipe all in your website for Google to rank you. Now, because Google would try and match those words, right? Because this was invented like over 20 years ago. Now they can understand the semantics and the intent of what you're looking for. So they're less reliant on those exact words because they can understand context. So if you're like, oh, this, chocolate brownie is a crowd pleaser, it can potentially start to understand how a brownie, for example, would be a dessert. So we still want to, I'm not saying don't put your keywords in your content, right? You can't assume Google's going to know a brownie is a dessert. But what I am saying is putting the word dessert in all of these different tags isn't what's going to indicate to Google that it's a dessert. It's going to look for semantic and contextual relationships within your content. And then it's going to look at how people respond to the content. So what this means to you and how you want to sort of adapt your strategy is you want to make sure that you're focusing on creating, it sounds ridiculous that I say this out loud, because think about what SEO is trying to do, right? Somebody searched for something and Google's like, what's the most relevant result? But literally the best case scenario for you is to try and make your result most relevant. And that's how you will be most likely to rank in search anymore. So SEO is not dead, but it certainly is less about a lot of the sort of like tricks and signals to send to Google. And it's much more about creating relevant, useful content that search engines can read. So you really need to focus much, 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 much more on user experience and usability of your content and completeness. And that is likely to be more important than a lot of the sort of technical optimizations or trying to create your website and content based on general best practices. Now, AI is the other big thing impacting search. And there's probably, I literally just did a whole presentation on the impact that AI is having on search, and there's 1,000 charts about it. But here's the bottom line if you want to think about how AI is going to influence search. There is absolutely no question that AI is reducing the number of clicks that come from searches, just period, right? Those AI overviews are definitely driving clicks, and people are using AI for things they used to search for. That's 100% true. There's no arguing those trends. Now, let's think about what the impact of these trends is and what that really means to you. This is important to think about. So as we think about what is actually driving search results and what actually is getting clicks, we want to be thinking about, okay, what's the impact of AI on my search results and my traffic? Here's what you want to keep in mind. First of all, search engines send tremendous amounts of traffic to most websites. If you don't know what yours is, go into your Google Analytics and take a look. The truth is, search engines are among the top sources of traffic for most businesses. Whether you're getting 25% or 20% or 30%, it still will be significant. Okay, so I want you to have that in your head that, well, sure, it may be reducing search traffic. So your search traffic could definitely and likely is reduced based on AI. It doesn't mean that there is no search traffic coming or that it will not be significant. So we want to keep that in mind first, right? Is that even though it's declining, and I think there's no two ways about the decline, what we do want to keep in mind is that it still will be significant regardless of the impact of AI. So the second thing that you want to keep in mind as you're thinking of this impact is that Well, we know that AI will reduce search traffic. You're going to pick up traffic from AI. So if you look at this screenshot on one of my websites, you'll see ChatGPT ranked as a top 5 traffic source already. And if you look further down these results, you'll also see other AI tools showing up in that list. So that's like Claude was showing up, etc. So the reason that I want to point this out is because some of it is a trade-off. So yes, there's less from search, but there's more from AI, which then brings up the next question: how do you optimize for AI? Right now, the most common thinking really is that the things that optimize you for Google and search will also optimize you for AI, right? Getting listed in articles with links back to your site. All of that kind of stuff will help you to rank better in both AI and search engines. So if Google can understand your website and content, that means AI can likely as well. And if your content across the internet is broad and diverse, that will send the right signals to AI in terms of what you're about, right? So it's about really content syndication and message syndication. So those things are still true. That being said, you'll definitely be wanting to be thinking about what content is on your site. So, we should have been doing this for Google anyways, but especially as we think of AI, think about the questions that people are likely asking AI. And make sure you have that information publicly available on your site. It's not in a gated report or in some PDF somewhere, right? Look at the information people are searching for. Make sure that you're sharing that information so AI can pick it up, and then look at sources elsewhere to see what people are looking at. The truth of the matter is, TV didn't kill radio. AI is not going to eliminate Google. People still like to go to websites, do their own research, and make their own decisions, because AI can certainly give you information around certain parameters, but it doesn't have like actual judgment like humans. So as we're thinking about how we focus on the impact of AI, you will likely see reductions in search traffic. That being said, it'll be made up for by more AI traffic. The other thing you'll notice as you start digging into it is where AI is really replacing Google search results is for a lot of informational types of searches, which even if businesses happen to rank for those, it's not really people with high intent to do business with you. So losing some of those searches is not likely influencing your business impact because they're kind of like low purchase intent anyways. So think of it like, for me, what I think about is a lot of our blog posts, they're great for Google. I'm not saying don't have a blog, but what I'm trying to say is like our blog posts are great for search engines. It gives content, it brings us traffic so people can get exposed to our brand. But the vast majority of people come for the article, get what they needed, and leave. And they never come back and they never convert and do business with us. Those are the types of searches where someone's just looking for information. Hey, what are the steps to building a digital marketing plan? How can you articulate the current digital landscape? Those are where you're going to see AI taking over a lot, but user intent-based search, which is the best certification program for me, or I need a text messaging service for my business. Those are things that are not being as heavily replaced and where the traffic is still flowing. So just keep that in mind, but look at your own Google Analytics in order to make the decision and to make sure you understand how it's impacting you. But these are the broad trends that I would be thinking about. So the bottom line is that you want to focus on user experience. And, I put instead of SEO optimization, but like the actual truth is that you want to be working on these simultaneously, right? So user experience, though, is what's driving SEO. And that's what you always want to keep in mind, is that your user experience is more likely what is driving search engines than anything else. So really focus on this. And so I saw a question come in asking if I can provide an example of this. So I saw a question coming in from Kristen asking if I can provide an example of sort of the switch that we're starting to see from SEO optimized content to search engine content. So here's the thing I want you to keep in mind is that it's a balance, right? So what we're thinking about here isn't so much, although, arguably I positioned it a little bit as like, think about humans and not search engines. But the truth is it's a balance. And what you want to be thinking about, though, is the user experience, because what you'll usually find, and Google will tell you this as well, is that the top ranking results are the ones that provide the best user experience. So I'm just going to do a search, right? For, I'm trying to think of something that I'm looking to buy right now that I would naturally be searching for. Let's just do best accounting software for small businesses. So as we look at what's showing up, right, we have our ads at the top that we always saw. Then we have these AI overviews. And the AI overview basically picked up the top 3 that most people would probably be considering anyways, and it gives a little bit of an overview of them. As we start, though, looking further down the search results, and what you're going to start to see is that, so let's take a look at what's ranking first and second, right? The first ranking is actually an article from PC Magazine with the exact title, The Best Accounting Software for Small Businesses in 2025. So why does this rank first? In the past, the main reason this would rank first is because they have exactly what we searched for in the title, Best Accounting Software for Small Businesses. And certainly that still helps them. Again, we're not like unoptimizing for search engines. That's what this is. This is comparing the software, right? But if you look at why it actually ranks, and by the way, it ranks better than Xero, which is also online accounting software for your small business, right? These both have the same context cues behind them. But most likely, if you're asking the best software, you want to see a comparison. And Google knows that, and that's why a comparison shows up first. The second thing they show is actually from Reddit. And if you're paying attention to SEO, Reddit is everywhere right now. It is growing so much in search results. So what you're essentially seeing here is that optimizing for search engines still matters, but the priority should be users. And that's not actually new, to be honest. If you were to go back and look at what Google has been trying to tell people for a long time, and the reason it's called search engine optimization and not creation is that they want you to focus on that user experience. And that's the thing that should be more important. The reason you have to add titles, the reason you have to optimize your sites in certain ways is so Google can understand your site. But as Google's got more and more intelligent, these are less clues that it's looking for, and it's looking more at the context and the content of the content itself. So that's why the focus has really shifted. So one thing when it comes to SEO, again, of course you want to optimize for SEO, but user experience and user intent and providing good content will go a longer way than a lot of the sort of SEO optimizations and best practices that a lot of us had focused on in the past. The next thing that's really changing a ton is email marketing. So as we look at email marketing, this is like an oldie but a goodie, but as we look at email marketing, one of the things that you want to focus on when it comes to email is that deliverability has dramatically changed the way we think about email marketing. So what deliverability is, and it's important and helpful for everyone to understand this. Essentially what deliverability is how email providers like Google, Yahoo, whoever you get your email through, they decide when an email comes in, should this go to the inbox, promotions, social, spam, or should I just delete it and not even show it to the person? That's what email deliverability is all about. And email deliverability has changed a ton in terms of how email providers look at what they count as like a good email sender. So it used to be that the primary metric everyone focused on was open rate. And the basic idea was that if most people were opening your emails or more people were opening your emails, that would signal to, let's say, Gmail that your emails are good. And then that would increase the number of emails that landed in someone's inbox. Right? So it was really focused on individual email open rates, because if people are interacting with your emails, then they think people want them and you're doing good. Well, here's where email started to change. And this change is not actually that new. It's probably like 3 to 5 years old. The way they now measure email marketing success, so the way Google and these other companies are looking at your email marketing success, is based on 30, 60, and 90-day engagement rates. And this is for promotional emails specifically, right? So what a 30, 60, and 90-day promotion rate is, or engagement rate is if I sent emails, let's say there's 100 people on my list, right? What the email providers are looking at to gauge engagement is to say what percent of the people on my list actually engaged with an email in the last 30 days. So think about it like this, right? It's not what was my open rate of the emails I sent. It's the percent of people on my list that engaged with any email in 30, 60, or 90 days. This is really different because what this means is that if you send, let's say, one email a month, that means you have one shot to engage someone each month. If I skip your email because you sent it when I was on vacation, now I'm unengaged that month, right? So it's not the open rate, it's the percent of the list that has engaged in anything. So what you're seeing now is, and if you want to learn more about this, if you're a member, we have a whole course on email deliverability that really breaks this down in detail. But what you want to think about as you're thinking about your email strategy is, and you'll see this now that I've said it in your inbox, is instead of trying to get a high open rate on a single email by jamming all sorts of stuff into it, we're going to send 4 separate emails that are all really specific. And all I need is for you to like one of the 4. Right? It's not my open rate per email. It's the percentage of the people I sent it to that engaged. So email is changing dramatically because if you're only sending once a month, you're probably not going to keep a very high engagement rate because you're not giving people an opportunity to interact with you that much. The other thing, though, is that what we're finding is, look, it's partly related to mobile user behavior, who knows what, right? But if you look at more and more emails being opened on their phone, right? The idea is, and I think this makes sense of what we know about content creation on every other channel, is that an email that's like, there's a clothing retailer I love to buy from, right? But they're kind of pricier. I literally only shop on sale. So if they have an email about fall trends, I'm going to skip that one. But an email that's like, hey, 50% off this week only, I'm going to open that one. And now I'm engaged because I opened an email. In the past, we would have put 10 messages in one newsletter email. It's a horrible user experience, right? I have to scroll all the way down to try and find the sale. Plus, I might even miss it because they can't put everything in the subject line. Horrible experience. Now, the idea is that we send shorter, single-focused emails so that people can opt into, even within their inbox, they're opting into what's valuable to them, right? So they don't care that I don't want to know their fall trends because I'm going to open the emails that matter to me, which is like when they have a sale in my case. So what you want to be thinking about, if your old email marketing strategy is relying on newsletters, or you have emails with like all these different, first of all, emails shouldn't have any design in them anymore. You want simple, basic emails. But if you're relying on these multi-purpose emails that you send out periodically, you got to ditch that strategy and instead think of single-purpose emails and increasing your frequency so that people can opt into the messages they care about. You want to get succinct and catchy in your email writing because, again, as you're optimizing for phones, you know, even emails that don't look that long on a desktop can look horrible on a phone. I just did a digital marketing workshop in Cincinnati and we were evaluating content, and I put up a social post it had 3, I would say, small paragraphs of text. And I was like, so let's see what this is about. And as soon as like the screenshot came on, this one woman in the class, she was like, ugh. She's like, I don't want to read all those words, right? She felt overwhelmed. And so as you think about it, this is also a best practice for what we know about human consumption habits of digital content, right? People want quick, short, to the point. They don't want this longer format content. So as you're thinking about your overall strategy, definitely think about how you're adapting your email strategy in order to sort of meet new deliverability standards, but I also think this makes for a better user experience. So step A, make sure you understand deliverability and how it works, because there's other things you'll want to do to keep your deliverability high, like clean your email lists and stuff like that. And then second, focus more on regular single focused emails and be okay with the fact that not everyone's going to open everything. And your key isn't to just reappeal to the same type of person. Success is going to be by sending emails where everyone's finding something they like within the 30, 60, or 90-day period. And so that's really what we want to be focusing on as our overall strategy. So we want to be thinking about how are we sending these regular focused emails in order to maximize our effectiveness overall. So that's what we want to be thinking about from an email marketing strategy. One other pro tip as you think about these like regular focused emails is just like cut all the junk that you are used to having in your email that are not necessary anymore. So as we think about what's going to work better for our emails, we want to start cutting out the fluff and the junk because that does not work. And we know that. It's single focused, clear emails. Use your analytics to guide you. If you're still including like all your social icons, go look at the last time anyone clicked on them. Right? That's going to help you to make decisions and get more focus in your email strategy to work well today. Okay, the next thing that doesn't work well anymore is businesses trying to have presences everywhere. And, you know, I've been at this a long time, right? And one of the things I feel like is like my industry is to blame for this. And the reason I say my industry is to blame for this is because we've been telling people like, no, but look at TikTok. Look how cool it is. How could you not be doing that? And YouTube, you know, second biggest search engine. Why aren't you taking advantage of this? Look, I just taught a 4-day digital marketing bootcamp last week. And anytime I teach something that I'm not doing now, I'm like, man, I'm missing. Why am I not doing this, right? Oh, I should do display ads. Look how cheap they are. YouTube ads, cost per view, super low. So it's really easy to kind of like get distracted, I would say, by the number of channel opportunities. But here's this, I don't know if it's sad, but here's the truth, is that almost no businesses have the resources to do even a couple channels well, let alone more. You know, when I look at it, you know, as we did the introductions and I'm like, oh, let me know a little bit about what you're doing and, you know, where you work, right? A lot of you are not working for these big companies with millions of dollars in your budget. And so you need to make sure that your strategy is adapted to maximize the places that you get results from. So what we talk about is disproportionate effort where there's disproportionate results, which means if you were to look at all the activities you're doing, there's a really good chance that many of them are not bringing meaningful results to your business. So it used to be that, you know, every business needed to do everything. And what you're seeing now, and if you look at what actually works now, it is not being everywhere. It's having a strategic and focused channel strategy. Now, if you recall, my framing at the beginning of this whole webinar was that we need to be thinking a little bit more about, you know, there's more complexity to these channels and there's more competition on these channels. So think of it like this, right? If you're trying to be everywhere, you're not going to have enough focus anywhere to really get results, right? You can't be an email expert and an ads expert and, you know, and traditional and whatever else is in your role, right? You cannot be expert at all those things, but that's okay because they don't all matter equally. Look at your business, look at what's driving the vast majority of your results and focus your effort disproportionately on the things that matter most. And that's going to help you to be successful. This idea that you need to be everywhere is a total myth that we have told ourselves. I don't know why, right? Probably because of people like me saying it or getting you excited about everything. But here's where I really started thinking about this more and more is a couple years back, we did this strategy reset program. And it was like a guided sort of strategy session over a few weeks. And I participated for my own business. Like I did it too. And it was like one of the most useful exercises. And in the competitive analysis, here's what blew my mind, right? So I have a digital marketing company. We started off focusing in social media training and have, you know, over the last 20 years switched to do full digital. And we have a presence on basically every social channel. And if you would ask me why, I'd be like, well, you know, like we're a social and digital training company. How could people trust us if they don't see we can do this stuff and we're not even there? But guess what? There's a company in the UK that's at least 20 times bigger than me. They were recently acquired. They didn't have any presence on social media. you could barely even find them in search results. They had over 100 sales reps, and they're successful because they're focused on their growth strategy. They know what matters, they know what doesn't. As they evolved and got more mature, sure, they started to improve some of those things over time. But the truth is they knew where they were getting most of their customer growth from. If you look at, there was another company that spent $100K a month on paid search ads. There's another company that really relied on organic in order to get results and the reputation and visibility of the founder. So my point is, when you look at a lot of success stories, especially in the small and medium business category, it's about focus, not about doing everything. So I would say look at your analytics and really try and evaluate what are the most important things and try and do better at those, and that will grow your return on investment. All the FOMO that people are creating about you not being on this channel or the other, it's not realistically going to improve your results overall. So focus on the channels that matter the most and let go of a lot of other things, because that's how you'll actually drive growth. And again, this is predicated on the idea that digital marketing is more competitive and more complex than it's ever been. So like my friend who runs the social media show, who was like, I don't understand, everything we're doing is getting worse results. He was like, our email open rate is like so sad. Well, they didn't have the time, or they hadn't chosen to like learn email properly, right? And understand deliverability and understand how to send messages now. So as email got more complex and more competitive, without keeping up, the channel results started to deteriorate, right? If you're trying to do everything, you're not going to keep up with it all, but it's okay because not everything matters to bringing results to your business. So the more strategically focused you are, the less this is a problem, because in theory, what this should let you do, if you take what I'm saying and think about the best way to apply it, is to look at the stuff that's dragging you down. Right? There's an old expression in marketing. I know half my ad budget is wasted. I just don't know which half. Start trying to figure out which half are you wasting your time on, reduce or eliminate those, and focus where you're getting the results, because you cannot likely do everything well these days. Okay, the next thing that we're seeing a big shift toward is optimization of ad campaigns. So it used to be, and honestly, the whole creation process for them as well, but I'm gonna actually talk more about that at the end. But I was just teaching a class on digital ads, and it was really funny because when we were talking about it, they're like, well, how do I optimize my ads? And here's the truth about how ads work now. If you go and create an ad, first you're gonna notice there's like AI built in everywhere, right? It's like trying to get you to just use AI, whether it's in Google, Performance Max, automatic audiences, or Advantage Plus within Meta. There's AI built in at every stage, but more importantly than that, it's especially true when it comes to optimizing the ads. Here's what's changed, is that because the ads are automatically being optimized by artificial intelligence, if you look at a good ad campaign now, it actually does not involve having to constantly be adjusting the ad. You had to do that like 5+ years ago when there wasn't as much AI built into the ad itself. But the ad delivery, so like the way the ad gets shown to people and who sees it and which creative they see, all of that is really automatically being optimized for you now. So what used to happen was ad buyers would log into the accounts every day and say like, oh, this audience is doing better than this one. Let me switch the budget around. And this creative is better than this one. Let me turn this one off. But how ads work now is, first of all, that's not necessary. The budget will flow to where the results are. And second of all, every time you touch a campaign in a major way, you reset what's known as the learning stage, which means when you start a campaign, the AI tries to figure out what's the magic formula to get the results you want. And then they figure it out, and that's why your ads work well. Well, every time you change it, the AI starts over again. And Meta's really transparent on it. Your ads will say learning stage if they're in this stage, so you know that the results are all over the place still. But the point is that optimization is really, really different than it was in the past. And the role of ad buyers is very different than it used to be. Ads are now auto-optimizing, meaning they optimize themselves. So because the ads are optimizing themselves, what you need to focus on if you are running ads is not the optimization, it's setting them up strategically and knowing when to make an intervention. So you need to have multiple creatives, for example, for the ads to auto-optimize. You want to have broader audiences if it's lower funnel. You want to have a correct objective. If you set everything up properly, ads now optimize themselves, and they have for a long time. So this isn't like a new generative AI fancy thing. This has been going on for a long time. When I was teaching meta ads in Europe 5 years ago, agencies were allowing ads to auto-optimize and it was growing their results. So this isn't new, but it's kind of like Google now applies it as well, and it's slowly catching up as a broader idea. But basically, if you're running ads, spend more time focusing on the strategic inputs. You shouldn't be adjusting and changing your ads that much when they're running. What we want to look for is setting it up strategically and looking for an indicator that an intervention is needed versus optimizing or adjusting them on a regular basis. Our next trend is, I think you could probably like reframe this into like quality metrics, but we used to focus on, when you look at digital marketing measurement, a lot of us used to focus on what I would say are low quality metrics that don't really indicate your results. And traffic and bounce rate are two of the biggest culprits of this. Low quality metrics are basically metrics that, don't really represent a business goal and include a lot of junk in them. So if we think about traffic and bounce rate and think about like, what are we really talking about as we think about traffic and bounce rate? Here's what we're thinking about. Like, traffic is just the number of people who went to your site. But what if they all found your site horrible and left right away? Why would you count traffic? It does not mean it's relevant or it's good traffic. It just means someone went there, right? And then bounce rate basically meant they left your site immediately. They didn't find anything useful. When Google launched GA4, which if you use GA4, you probably hate it as much as I do. I still cannot like bring my brain to enjoy this user interface at all and find things I need easily. But that aside, we're all stuck with it. But what no one talked about, we were also caught up with GA4 in just like the switch and understanding the platform. What no one talked about is that Google dramatically changed the metrics. And in the earliest versions of GA4, they actually did not have bounce rate as a metric. They stopped reporting it. But then people threw so much of a fit, they brought it back. But the reason they got rid of it is this. It's not because bounce rate is like inherently a quote bad metric. It's because their whole point, and if you look at how the dashboard is now set up, is what they're saying is, why would you look at all users? Why not just look at active users? Right? The reason we had to look at bounce rate, for example, was because what we were seeing is that a lot of traffic was coming, doing nothing and leaving, and the bounce rate would kind of calculate the bad traffic. But what Google's point is, if you look at the new metrics in GA4, is to say, well, don't even look at just ignore it, pretend it didn't happen. Why are we not only and exclusively focusing on metrics that are quality? So if you look at the default dashboard that you see on Google Analytics, it's active users. That means people who engaged with your website. Key events. Events are like actions that they took on the website. Your user event rate, which means what % of users did a key event, and then how many sessions were engaged. So what they're trying to do is move you away from these big numbers that don't add a lot of value and move you toward the metrics that really matter, which again, why do I care if 100 people came to my site if 50 of them left right away? I should just focus on the 50 that ought to be there and pretend that's like my world of addressable audience. So they're kind of changing the game in terms of the metrics, but what's smart about it is that if you're looking at your Google Analytics, they're pushing these quality metrics ahead of traditional ones. So the traditional ones are still there because people want them, but make an effort to look at and understand the higher quality metrics that are getting increased visibility, because focusing on those things will help you to understand what's truly happening that impacts your business instead of focusing so much on lower quality metrics that are less and less important. So we're trying to avoid looking at bounce rate and traffic, which don't matter, and instead we're looking at higher quality metrics that do matter more. So our main takeaway here is to reshift our brains to focus more on higher quality metrics. And this goes along with other digital channels as well, not only Google Analytics, but stop looking at things like your click rate when you run an ad. Stop running traffic ads altogether. Don't worry about your social media engagements. Don't worry about your followers. The big trend that we're seeing with measurement overall is a shift away from these like proxy metrics. So like the reason we would track clicks is because it's like, well, they clicked and they went to the website, so maybe they'll buy from us, right? We viewed it as a way to say, maybe they will now take action. But what we actually can do instead of looking at clicks, why not run an ad focused on getting people to complete your lead form or watch a video or spend a minute on your site? And even if you're running search ads, which search ads are called PPC, pay per click, because that's how they were invented. Even when you're running a search ad, it now will give you the option, and it will really strongly recommend, I should say more than give you the option, in the setup, it'll tell you optimize around an action on your site. Don't worry about clicks, because it's kind of like what we were talking about with Google Analytics. We know that tons of these are junk, but we keep optimizing and trying to get more junk metrics. Rather than trying to get 1,000 clicks, focus on getting 100 leads, right? That's the big idea here, is to laser in our focus on the business outcomes that we want, and that will help to get better results. So this requires a shift in the way we think about marketing toward business outcomes, right? What is it that I really want? You know, people love talking about engagement rates on social media, for example. Engagement rate is literally the worst metric ever. It's completely irrelevant. The reason people like engagement rate is twofold. One, they'll say, well, if they engaged with our content, that means they're more engaged with our brand. That is not true. There's no data that says that. Just because someone engaged with your content absolutely does not make them more engaged with your brand or business. There's no relationship between those ideas. Liking content on social media has much more to do with that person and their habits and the construct of your post. It doesn't link to brand awareness or brand affinity or brand equity or anything you think it does. The other reason people justify it is they say, yeah, but the algorithms are based on engagement. So if we're getting more engagements, we'll reach more people. Cool, just measure reach. That's a business outcome, right? Reaching people leads to awareness. That's more of a business outcome, or at least a marketing outcome. So really try and think about shifting your focus toward business outcomes and away from proxy metrics that don't add value. The next thing that you might be doing that doesn't work, and you know, I say this with peace and love, but like mediocre organic social media. So here's the deal with social media. There are businesses that are still killing it organically. So first of all, organic is not dead at all, but you need to either decide to work hard to earn organic traffic or focus on an advertising strategy. What I still can't believe is the number of accounts I look at run by businesses that post religiously day after day, week after week, month after month, and almost no one views their content. That's not growing your business, right? That's throwing away your time. What we know is that social media and every channel is more competitive than in the past, right? And there's more to it. If you want to get results from these platforms, you need laser focus and you need a deliberate strategy. So if you're looking to do well in social media, you can do well organically if that's a strategy you want to pursue. And if you look at the biggest brands in the world, you see a mix. I was just showing, I think it was Lululemon or Fabletics, one of those in a client workshop. I think it was Lululemon. They hadn't posted in years. Is one of the largest, best-known brands. They just kind of stopped posting because they probably realized their marketing objectives could be more easily achieved through an advertising strategy than all the time and effort going into organic to ultimately not get mass reach anyways. So think about, if you're going to do organic social media, do it well and make sure you have an engaged audience and you're getting results. Otherwise, you can look at it very strategically as a way to test messages and then advertise on those platforms to get that reach more easily. Okay, the next thing that is not going to work anymore is this AI content. Now, this AI content, like I said it so like negatively. Okay, here's the deal though. Everyone, I get it. Everyone's all about AI. And trust me, I'm teaching AI all the time, including how to use it for content creation. I love AI. I think it's amazing. But here's the irony to me is that what we've been trying to tell people for like 10 years, 15 years is if you want to succeed in social media, if you want to succeed in digital marketing, you need to be authentic and you need to stand out. AI content inherently cannot do either of these things, even with significant training. AI content is basically trained on existing content. So it makes stuff that all sounds a certain way. And yes, you can try and train that out of it. You can get more and more effective at it. But I'm not saying don't use AI, but I am saying that there's been this hype about using AI as a key part of your content strategy. And I would challenge you to rethink that, because what we know about what breaks through the social algorithms, AI literally does the opposite of them. And I think if you actually want to stand out, really look for authenticity, real photos, real people, bringing your brand voice to life. There's a lot of services right now that offer AI personalization. I get ads for them almost constantly. And it's like, the idea is that, you know, in this case, it's in the sales process. It'll use AI to personalize the cold emails it sends. And it's really interesting because I get a ton of them. And they are more personalized than they used to be, but I don't find them any more effective because you can tell right away it's fake, right? It's like, hi, Krista, I see that Bootcamp Digital does lots of cool digital marketing training. I think that's awesome. Good for you. I'm writing today because like that little paragraph of personalization really didn't change my acceptedness or propensity to want to do business with this audience. It's meaningless personalization at scale. And so I think the truth is that while AI is valuable, authenticity is still going to stand out and differentiating your business, especially because we know everyone is using AI. So really use AI, but use it strategically and make sure that you still stand out. Okay, the next big thing that I want you to start thinking about is a lot of content strategies are still very text-centric in terms of the types of content. We talk about website content, mostly text, blogs, mostly text, emails, mostly text. A lot of these things are really text-heavy. But when we look at the content people want to consume, it's not text, it's video. And if you actually look at search results, so I searched for my own business right after my business name. So there's, you know, the ads, AI search results, then Bootcamp Digital shows up, then our Instagram channel of all things. And then look, videos shows up next, even in search results. Videos are in more and more places. And my suggestion is, you know, I see a lot of opportunity in video right now. One, it's showing up in search results. Two, if you look at YouTube, look, when I started my business, everybody was all about YouTube like 20 years ago. And I think as we all got so laser focused on social media, so many people forgot YouTube, especially after they realized like you can't instantly go viral. There's work to be done. And YouTube continues to earn more views than anywhere else. It's like, and it's connected to search engines. So my suggestion is if you look at what doesn't work as well, so much text-heavy content. And of course, we need the text-heavy content for SEO and AI. So I'm not saying get rid of it, but instead, I would also focus on adding video to your strategy and make sure you have good, authentic videos that you can use in as many places as possible. Okay, the last thing that doesn't work anymore is creating your ads campaigns manually. So mind-blowing here. If you follow digital marketing news, you've probably seen this. Facebook recently announced a new type of ad where basically you just say, here's my goal. So I want to get subscriptions to my All Access Pass and I'm going to spend $100 a day. And that's all you need to tell it. And it's going to figure out who your buyers are. It'll figure out the creative and it's going to run the ads. Now, all the advertising agencies and marketers are like, this is crazy. There's no way this will work. And the truth is, to me, It's a little far-fetched. The main reason is because the only thing an ad algorithm focuses on is getting you the best cost per result on your ad. It doesn't care if my brand is well represented. It cares what gets it the best result on the ad, right? It doesn't care about my brand guidelines or the value proposition I want people to know. It focuses on the best results for the ad. So while the AI is powerful and you definitely don't want to ignore it, you want to be using AI in your ads strategically is what I would say. I think letting them have a budget and do what they want, again, it's not that I don't think it would get good results. For me, the bigger problem is that it likely will mess up other things that I care about that it doesn't understand, right? It's only focusing on one thing. But if you're not highly leveraging the AI in ad campaigns, you're missing out. Any audience I speak to, when I ask people who thinks Meta, Facebook, listens to their conversations, at least half the class, if not more, raises their hands. And people will like die telling me how they believe it's true. It's not true. It's the AI is so good and the signals they have are so good. They can make ads that we think listen to us. Why would you not be running ads if they're so good you think it listens to you? Think about that for a second, right? So if you're not leveraging the AI in your ad campaigns, you're missing a huge opportunity. It's shown again and again to deliver better results. So definitely make sure you're using AI smartly. It does depend on your campaign objective, etc. We cover all this in our classes if you want to learn more detail. So as we think about like what's the big picture here, the big thing I want you to keep in mind is that what's in style and trending, right? Like what do you need to focus on if you want to continue to be successful and avoid the things that are holding you back? You want more strategic thinking. I would say you want more focus and you want more creativity. Those are the three things that are likely to pay out: strategic thinking, focus, and creativity. The things that are less likely to matter are some of these technical things and manual operations, manual optimizations. That's where AI really shines and is better than human beings anyways. You know, to me, it's kind of ironic. Content creation is the #1 use of AI, but that actually is like an art and a science, and AI doesn't know your brand as well as you do. Whereas, you know, a lot of the simple things where AI would really shine, we're not using it for as heavily. So those are kind of the key things that I would want to leave you with and want you to think about. We did have one question come through that I do want to address just as we wrap up. If you have any other questions, get them in now so I can make sure I answer them before we wrap up. But we did get a question that came in from Karen. Let me just find it over here. Okay, here we go. So the question is, should we have our website titles be phrased in the form of a question rather than just a topic? So, you know, like go for the ask engine optimization is what they call it. So I don't know. This kind of to me is like, it's that like technical SEO mindset, right? Where it's like, should we phrase it in a question? I think if your audience is phrasing it in a question, and look at search volume, right? If that's how people are asking for information on this topic, then sure, that will help them to know they're in the right place. But I don't think in general it actually matters if you phrase it as a question or not. It matters that when someone searches that question, you provide the best possible answer to it. So what I would focus 90% of my efforts on is being the best possible answer to something versus worrying about whether or not it's that it's phrased a certain way. Because this is the big way Google has improved, right? Is that semantically, it used to always look for phrase matches, right? So if you wanted to rank for an answer, like for a question, right? And the answer therefore, but if you wanted to rank for the question, you would need that question in the title. As Google has become smarter and smarter, it's less necessary. But, you know, if that's the way most people are searching and that's most intuitive to explain to the audience, then I would do it that way. So I'd really think of it in terms of like audience experience and what's most relevant to the audience, because that will get you rankings in the long term, right? Even though like right now we're at a stage where sure, if people search for the question, putting the exact question probably will still give you a boost. I don't think that like the future-proofed strategy is being the actual best answer, not getting the exact phrase in your subject line, in your headline. Do you get what I'm saying? So really focus on being the best answer above all else, and that's how you're going to get the best results possible. Okay, the next question I see here from Karen. You mentioned YouTube and the importance of putting videos there, but you also said don't try and be good at everything and focus on a few channels. Should YouTube always be one of them? Okay, so I mean, here's how I would think about it. This is a really good question, is that it's kind of like if you already have, to me, how I think of everything is it's like impact investment, right? How much impact does this have and how much investment is it for me? And that's going to help me to understand where I want to spend my time and energy, right? So you can't be good everywhere. So what I would look at with YouTube is like, how important is it? What's the size of the prize? Do you want to go all out, right? Because you could, if you came to me and said like, I really want to dominate YouTube, we'd have a lot of work to do to get there, and you'd need a lot of resources. If you're like, hey, I have all these video contents, I have all these videos everywhere, is it a good idea to take some extra time to put them on YouTube? 100%. So the way that I would think about it is exactly, and I see Teresa added a comment saying videos can be on LinkedIn and other places, 100%. So it's kind of like two different strategies, right? One is like, if you're really wanting to dominate YouTube and get good results, then you got to view it from, do I have the time and resources to do this well? You need a ROI mindset, resource mindset driven approach. If on the other hand, you're trying to just get some upside, there's low investment ways to participate. As Teresa pointed out, videos work on every channel now, especially LinkedIn. So like for us, we normally wouldn't be on TikTok. We don't create TikTok specific content, but we create a lot of vertical videos for our other channels out of our webinars, etc. So it takes almost no effort. So while we're not putting the effort into TikTok, we are getting views on TikTok and YouTube Shorts by sharing our content there. So I think the way I would think about it is that it's not a focus, right? So if you may have channels where you're not putting in a lot of effort and you still have a presence, I think that's a great strategy, but you got to know what you're getting from it then. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, we're just syndicating over there. We're not trying to get hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. We're using it as a sort of a bonus channel. That's how I think of it. It's like anything we get is a bonus. So I would encourage you to think of the strategic role that it's playing. And to me, that's really the key, is like, what's the strategic role that this is playing? If you are okay with like picking up the scraps by throwing some stuff out, that's not a bad idea. That sounds bad, picking up the scraps, right? But it's not a bad idea. Those scraps add up over time. But if you truly wanted to say, I'm going to invest in YouTube, we're going to do well here, you need to then have the resources to do it. So I know it seems a little contradictory, but how I would think about it is it's almost more an investment strategy than a yes or no, right? I want to make sure 80% of my effort is focused on the handful of channels that I know bring me the most impact. And then there's some that are just on autopilot. Like if I think of Facebook, we do still have a presence there, but we put literally no effort into it. It auto posts anything from LinkedIn, because it doesn't matter to us. So that's how I would think about it, is that it's okay to do things that are really low investment, but just be clear with yourself. Because if you approached YouTube as, let's get some extra views for all these great videos you have, A-okay, definitely do it. If you're like, we need a YouTube strategy, let's try and do well on YouTube, then you need to treat it as a serious channel and have the resources to support it. So that's what I would think about. Okay, so we are over time, so I'm gonna wrap us up for today, but I really appreciated all of your great questions. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed my fun new tool that I'm using to sort of give us some more variety in the display and the interactions. But I want to thank you all for joining. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to learn with me and help to improve your digital marketing. We do these educational webinars for free every single month, so make sure you're getting our emails in your inbox so that way you can see what's coming up next. and join in the future if you'd like to. Also, if you're joining us live, you're obviously in Bootcamp Institute. We've given you a bunch of free resources. There's a couple free classes you can check out and more. If you're a member, you have like so much stuff, some of which I referred to. So maybe you have email deliverability on your list and a little bit of AI ads courses. But definitely thank you for joining. Hopefully I've given you some food for thought to enhance your strategies. I appreciate you taking time to learn with us today. And hopefully I'll be seeing you on another webinar sometime soon. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.